This program will show you how to do some simple math output. Now again, what I'm going to do here is I will flesh out my program a little bit. So I'll say pound include IOStream using namespace std. Let's go ahead and correct our first line of our main function. This would be the header line of the function. And I'll put a system pause here so that we hold our console output screen open so that we can see what our program is doing. Now, in this program, what I'd like to play with a little bit is looking at how we can do mathematics using input and output. So the first thing I'll do here is I will declare a couple numbers. So I will say double x, comma, y. It's perfectly legal to declare two variables on one line, and I will now ask for what the value of x is. So that's called a prompt, where you ask the user for some information. So I'll say, quote, enter a value for x. I'll then give a colon, a couple spaces, and then a semicolon. In this case, I won't say endl because I want the user to take input on the same line that they give the prompt. Now I'll say cin. Again, this is called standard console in. A cout statement is called standard console out. And I'll put this into my x variable using, again, this particular item, which is called the extraction operator. To be a little bit lazy, I'll copy the last two lines of code and I'll paste this down. And here we'll enter a value for y, so I'll change my prompt just a little bit. And then I'll take input into y. Now what I want to show you is I can now actually take these two numbers and multiply them and show the result. So I can say cout x times y, endl. If I give a mathematical expression with a cout statement, C++ will go ahead and perform the mathematics. So whatever value you enter for x and whatever value you enter for y, it's going to multiply these two values here and give us the result. Let's see what this looks like. So when I run this and I go to debug, if I enter a 2 and then a 3, we will see that the result is equal to a 6. So that's okay. We got the right answer that we were looking for, but it would really look a lot better if on the next line, that cout statement, I was able to say 2 times 3 equals 6 for whatever numbers I was to put in for x and y. In the example I just did, it was 2 times 3. I want to format it so it looks like 2 times 3 equals 6. Now this is something that you should always do when you make a C++ program. You should give really nice formatting so that the user who's using this can make sense of your program. So if I want to see what the value of the first variable is, this 2 here, all I need to do is output x. And now the next thing I want to see here is that the user is going to multiply. Now to show a multiplication sign, that would be a literal. So I'm going to put a star between two asterisks, and that's going to show that we wish to multiply. Now the next thing I can enter would be a y, and that's actually going to show the second number that the user entered. And now the last thing I want to see here is this equal sign. So all I have to do is put that between quotes, and then I've got my equal sign. Now wherever you use a variable, that is a variable. But anything within quotes, which is actually what it is, if it's in quotes, this is called a literal. Literals can be used in a lot of different ways. For instance, up here, it's not a bad programming practice when you first declare some variables to set them equal to 0. Well, in this particular case, the x is a variable, but a 0 is what it is. So here, 0 is also a literal, but it's a number. And down here, if I put something between quotes, it is a literal, but it's a special type of literal because it's a character. I'm going to call it a string literal. Well, let's see the result of our handiwork here where we take the two numbers, times each other, and we show the result. So if I rebuild this and I run it, if I enter a 2 and then a 3, we get the formatted output 2 times 3 equals 6 because of the code that we just wrote right here. The 2 is produced with this x here. The times is what I've produced here with the quotes. The 3 is from the y. The equals is from this equal sign. And the 6 here is the result of doing mathematics here. So at any rate, this should help you understand a little bit about formatting your output when it comes to doing mathematics. Now there is another thing I need to show you. Common within programming, especially computer science, is a concept which we call the modulus. The symbol for the modulus is the % sign. So I'm going to give you an example of the modulus. I will say cout 25% 6 and L. Now, what the modulus is the remainder. It gives us the remainder. So if I take 25 divided by 6, 6 goes into 25 4 times. My remainder is 1, so when I output this, I should see a 1 produced. 1 is the remainder, and that is what the modulus is. So if I rebuild this, you should see this. Let's go ahead and run this, and sure enough, let's see, 2, 3, I see that the modulus is 1. Now, this comes in very handy when I do division. If I do what I did before, if I say, give me a couple numbers, so again, I'll take input on 2 numbers. I'll just copy my prompts from before, and I'll take input into X and Y. I can actually format a division problem which shows what the whole number portion and then the remainder is of division. Except there's one little detail I have to be very careful of. You must use integers whenever you calculate what the modulus is. So I need to use some new variables here. I'm going to say int a, b. I'll say here, enter a value for A and a value for B, and I need to make sure I substitute these into the correct values. Now the next thing I'm going to show you is how many times B divides into A. So I'm going to format this just like I did before with multiplication up here. Except I'm going to do division down here, and again I'm going to show what the whole number portion is of my answer as well as the remainder. So the first thing I'm going to say is the one number, A, is outputted, and the next thing I want to show is that it is divided by another number which is B, and then I want to show a equal sign. Whatever you do, never try to find the modulus of 2 numbers which are decimal. You can never find the modulus of a float or a double, but you can always find it for an integer. So the first thing I want to do is I want to show what the whole number portion of this is. And we've already learned that the whole number portion is just given by the one integer divided by the other integer. This will give the integer, or the integer which is less than or equal to the value that you see here. Now the next thing I want to see, just like you used to do in longhand division when you were younger, is to show the value r, which means remainder. And now the final thing I'm going to do is I will actually show what the remainder is. And I know to give the remainder, I just need to simply say a% b. And I'll give an endl on the end of it. So here's a nicely formatted problem. I'll go ahead and rebuild this, and I'll run it. And let's go ahead and do the first portion of the problem. 5 and 6. 5 times 6 is 30. Now I'm going to do the division. For this particular part of the problem, let's say that I have 35 for the big number that I'm having on top, and then the number I divide into that is 10. Now we know 10 goes into 35 3 times, and I have a remainder of 5. When I hit return, that's exactly what I should see. 3 remainder 5 as being the result. And you can see that I was able to produce this with the code that I just wrote by saying 35 is A. I then showed the divide by. I then have B, which was a 10. The equals came from here. It was this literal here. Then I outputted the A, which was A divided by B. A divided by B, 10 into 35 was a 3. So that's where I got this. Then I outputted the R. And then finally I found the remainder of 10 into 35. 10 goes in there 3 times, but my remainder is 5. So all of this should hopefully make sense. So you need to be able to format your output nicely within C++ so it makes sense when you make your programs, and so that people can kind of follow what you're doing. So at this particular point, this concludes my tutorial on formatting output